63. Two monks, quelling fiends, disturb the dragon palace. The sages, destroying deviates, acquire the treasures. We were telling you about the king of the sacrifice kingdom and the various officials, both great and small. When they saw how the great sage Sun and 8 rules mounted the wind and fog and glided away, each holding one of the little fiends, all those dukes and marquises bowed toward the sky, saying, "It's indeed the truth." Not until today did we realize that there are such immortals, such living Buddhas. When the 2 disciples vanished from sight, the king then turned to thank Tripitaka and Shamunk, saying, "This solitary one is of fleshly eyes and mortal stock. We only thought that your worthy disciples had sufficient power to capture the fiendish thieves. Little did we realize that they are actually superior immortals who can ride the fog and mount the clouds. This humble cleric," said Tripitaka, "has hardly any magic power, and he's dependent on these 3 lowly disciples throughout the journey." Shamunk said, "To tell you the truth, your majesty, my big brother happens to be the converted great sage, equal to heaven. Once he caused great havoc in heaven, using a golden hooped rod, and among 100 celestial warriors, there was none who could withstand him. Even the Jade Emperor and Lao Tzu were intimidated by him. My second elder brother is none other than the Marshal of Heavenly Reeds who has embraced the right fruit. He used to command a mighty force of 80,000 Marines of the Celestial River. Compared with them, this disciple has very little magic power, but I, too, happen to be the curtain-raising captain who has received the commandments. We brothers may not be very good at doing other things, but if you want something like catching fiends and binding monsters, seizing thieves and arresting fugitives, taming tigers and subduing dragons, kicking down heaven and pulling up wells, including even stirring up seas and overturning rivers, we know a little of these. As for activities such as mounting the cloud and riding the fog, calling up rain and summoning wind, moving the stars and changing the dipper, hauling the mountains to chase after the moon, they are simple matters, hardly worth mentioning." When the king heard this, he became even more respectful toward them. Asking the Tang monk to take the honored seat, he addressed him as Venerable Buddha, while Sha monk and his companions were given the title Bodhisattva. The civil and military officials of the entire court were all delighted, while the people of the whole kingdom paid them homage, and we shall leave them for the moment. We now tell you about the great sage Sun and 8 rules who, astride the violent wind, brought the 2 young fiends to the green wave lagoon at the scattered rock mountain. After they stopped their clouds, the great sage blew a mouthful of divine breath onto his golden hooped rod, crying, "Change." It changed at once into a ritual razor, with which he cut off the ears of the black fish spirit and the lower lip of the sheet fish spirit. After casting the fiends into the water, Pilgrim shouted to them, "Go quickly and make a report to that All Saints Dragon King. Tell him that his venerable father Sun the great sage, equal to heaven, has arrived. Tell him to bring out immediately the original treasure taken from the top of the Golden Light Monastery in the Sacrifice Kingdom, and the lives of his whole family will be spared. If he but utters half a no, I'll clean out this lagoon, and everyone in his household, both old and young, will be executed." Those 2 little fiends were only too glad to have their lives back. Enduring their pain and dragging along their iron chains, they fled by darting into the water. The spirits of fishes, shrimps, crabs, sea turtles, iguanas, and huge tortoises were so startled that they swarmed around them and asked, "Why are you 2 draped with ropes and chains?" One of the 2, hands still hugging the sides of his head, kept wagging his tail and shaking his head. The other one, holding his mouth, stamped his feet and beat his breast. In a noisy throng, they went up to the palace of the Dragon King, and the 2 made this report. "Great King, disaster. The All Saints Dragon King was just drinking wine with 9 heads, his son-in-law. When he saw them dashing in, he put down his glass and inquired about the disaster. We were on patrol last night," said one of the 2 fiends, "when we were caught by the Tang monk and Pilgrim Sun, who happened to be sweeping the pagoda. We were, in fact, bound by iron chains. This morning we were taken to see the king, after which that pilgrim and Jew 8 rules hauled the two of us back here. One of us had his ears cut off and the other his lower lip. They then threw us into the water and told us to make this report. They are demanding from us the treasure taken from the pagoda top. When they gave a thorough account of what had happened, and when the old dragon heard the name Pilgrimson, the great sage, equal to heaven, he was so terrified that his spirit fled his body and his soul floated up to the ninefold heaven. Shaking all over, he said to 9 heads, "Oh, worthy son-in-law. It may be all right if another person shows up, but if it's he, then we're in a bad situation. Relax, great father-in-law," said the son-in-law with a laugh. "Since his youth, your foolish son-in-law has mastered the rudiments of the martial arts. Within the 4 seas he has, moreover, met quite a few stalwart warriors. Why fear him? Let me go out now and fight 3 rounds with him. I promise you that that fellow will bow his head in submission, not daring even to look up. Dear fiend." He leapt up at once and put on his armor, picking up a weapon which had the name of Crescent-Tooth Spade. Striding out of the palace, he opened a path in the water and rose to the surface, crying, "What sort of great sage, equal to heaven, is here? Come over quickly and yield your life." Standing on the shore, Pilgrim and 8 rules stared at the monster spirit to see how he was attired. He wore a bright silver helmet, its luster whiter than snow. He had on a cuirass of steel, luminous as autumn's frost, which topped a damask martial robe, patterned like colored clouds enfolding jade. His waist had a belt of rhinoceros grain, which seemed like a python spotted with gold. His hands held the crescent-tooth spade, flashing with beams of light. His feet wore 2 pigskin boots, which parted water and waves. Seen from afar, he had 1 head and 1 face. Drawing near, he seemed human all around. Eyes in front, eyes behind. He could see all 8 quarters. A mouth on the left, a mouth on the right. 9 mouths talking at once. One shout he gave and it shook the distant void, as if a crane's cry had punctured the stars. When the monster spirit found no reply, he shouted once more, "Who is the great sage, equal to heaven?" Giving his golden fillet a pinch and his iron rod a bounce, Pilgrim replied, "Old Monkey's the person." The fiend asked, "Where do you live? Where did you come from originally? How did you get to the Sacrifice Kingdom to become the guard of the pagoda for that king? How dare you capture my captains and work further violence by provoking battle on my treasure mountain? You thievish fiend!" scolded Pilgrim. "So, you don't recognize your grandfather's son? Come up here and listen to my recital. Mount Flower Fruit S where Old Monkey once had lived. At the great ocean's water curtain cave. I've wrought a perfect body since my youth. Emperor Jade made me sage equal to heaven, when I caused great havoc in the Dipper Hall. The gods in heaven found me hard to beat. The Buddha, asked to lend his wondrous might, used his boundless wisdom transcendently. In a somersault wager, a test of might. His hand formed a mountain to have me pressed beneath it till now, a full 500 years. My life was spared when Guanyin intervened. Great Tang's Tripitaka would go to the west, to seek on Spirit Mountain the Buddhist verse. To give him protection I found release, and cultivation purging imps and fiends. At Sacrifice Kingdom of the West we met. Priests wrongly blamed 3 generations all. In mercy we inquired about the cause, and learned the pagoda had lost its light. My master swept it to get to the truth. The night reached 3rd watch when all sounds had ceased. We caught 2 monsters who at once confessed. You all, they claimed, had the treasure stolen. The gang of thieves e'en had a dragon king, to which a princess added her name, All Saints, by raining blood on the pagoda's beams. She took someone's treasure for her own use. That true statement before the court obtained. We sped to this place by the king's command, that we might find you and provoke a fight. There's no need to ask for father-son's name. Return the treasure quickly to the king, and we'll spare your kin's lives, both old and young. If you're so foolish as to want to strive, I'll drain your water, topple your mountain, and stamp you out." When the son-in-law heard these words, he smiled scornfully and said, "So, you're a monk on your way to fetch scriptures? Don't you have anything more important to do than to meddle in someone's affairs? You're to seek your scriptures from Buddha, and I am the one who steals treasures. What has that to do with you? Why must you come here to fight with me? This thievish fiend," said Pilgrim, "has very little understanding. Of course, I'm not a recipient of the king's favor, nor do I feed on his water or rice, and thus I'm not obliged to serve him. But you stole not only his treasure and defiled his pagoda, you also brought suffering to the priests of the Golden Light Monastery. They belong, after all, to the same community as we. How could I not exert my strength on their behalf and bring their injustice to light?" "In that case," said the son-in-law, "you must want to do battle. As the proverb says, war is an unkindly act. When I raise my hands, I fear I'll not spare you."